Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. It's a really cool review for you guys from the brand Forstner. Originally founded as the Forstner Chain Corporation in about 1920 by William Forstner in New Jersey. In its early years, the company made ornamental jewelry and watch bracelets. Now, in terms of some things that are a little bit more what they're known for today, it's these bracelets, and you guys have seen, if you're fans of the channel, I have a slew of them. Most recently really fell in love with their flat link bracelets for my Neo Vintage Omegas. But when I saw this release, which is actually a really cool, kind of rare 5-row beads of rice style bracelet, I had to reach out to see if they could send me in a unit just so I could pair it with this beautiful Kurono Tokyo Reiwa 2024 anniversary model. Now, many are familiar with the more classic beads of rice, sometimes called grains of rice, style of bracelet. Now, lesser known is the rare 5-row style presented here, originally designed by none other than Gay Ferres in the mid-20th century. Now, Forstner has recreated and updated the classic 5-row design, adding solid 316L stainless steel links, removable with a simple 1-screw system, along with plenty of micro adjustments there, manual micro adjustments on that clasp, although it is more of a vintage style, so there's going to be some stamped components there. I think they really did a great job of reviving this piece. So this is going to be a real showcase for the Forstner 5-row beads of rice stainless steel bracelet that comes in at $132 direct. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, another big shout out to Forstner for sending this beautiful bracelet in for review. Of course, although they did provide this free of charge, all the thoughts are my own. It's not like Forstner got they got to add any notes, or they're not even going to be able to see this video before any of you guys do. So definitely more on the honest side, and very confident within their product lines, and they should be, guys. Look at this. I mean, look at this bracelet. Now, it's not a bracelet I would design myself. Honestly, I wouldn't have thought to do this type of layout, but I have to say, seeing it, especially in the metal, I mean, in the pictures, I think it looks great too, but in the metal, I think it's fantastic. And I'm definitely somebody who typically looks for more of a tapering bracelet, but because of how articulated this is, because of all of kind of the negative space and all of the gaps with it, and again, these are purposeful gaps, these aren't due to lack of precision or anything like that, it actually wears really comfortably. So I don't necessarily need as much of a taper, or really any taper, when you look at how nice this is. And it also is a little bit thinner. So although it's a 20mm lug width, the chain section itself, the links are going to be just 18mm. Now, to get into some of the details here, guys, this is constructed out of 316L stainless steel. It measures 18mm there at that bracelet portion, and it's offered in between 18 to 22mm in terms of the end pieces. So there's quite a few options. Definitely check the links down in the description. And for some of you who maybe haven't seen the full review of this watch, you might be saying, hey, that's pretty tough in terms of legibility. Guys, it's because it's reflecting, right? These are reflective hands reflecting off of the black camera lens. So, don't get too caught up with that. Of course, if I was to put something above here, you'd be able to get something a little bit better in terms of the reflection, but then also you wouldn't be able to enjoy the deep black inkiness of that dial. So I'm just going to leave it like this, because I don't think anybody's watching this video necessarily to tell the time on this gorgeous timepiece. Now, what I did want to make sure I talk about in this video is, one, how beautifully it pairs with this Kurono Tokyo. And this, although this is the most recent and actually the final iteration of this glorious 2-piece dial setup that they are really world famous for, there are other iterations. So I did want to show this here paired, because if you have one of the other versions, and I mean, it's tough to think of a better suited bracelet. And again, I think it has to do with just the aesthetic, the architecture here. You have, of course, all of those beautiful kind of Art Deco concentric circles there on the outer track. And here you just have a similar kind of play in light, in finishing, of contrast. And it just, I don't know, for me, it just fits. But let me know in the comments what you guys all think. While you're doing that, let me talk about some more of these details. So you are going to get, of course, the solid stainless steel construction. You're also going to get about 3 millimeters thick there, so nice and thin. And I think it goes with the profile of course, a more vintage inspired kind of thinner watch. And here you're going to see something that a lot of people aren't crazy about. And honestly, initially, I wasn't too crazy about seeing stamped profiles. But when I look at the thinness of this, I mean, ergonomically, it makes sense. In terms of visual flow, it makes sense. Like, look how thin this clasp is because it has to go with these thin links. It goes well with this thin case. And a lot of times we're just a little bit jaded just because it seems to be more common practice to have clasps that are almost thicker than the watches themselves. So here I just think, although there's that part of my brain that says, oh, spec wise I would love to have this milled, but then realistically I just want it to be comfortable. So here you're going to get the comfort. No, you're not going to be getting I would say that extra confidence in terms of the construction. I mean, it's definitely solid construction. I mean, this was luxury level of construction just a few years back. Of course, things have changed and are more modern. But again, this, in terms of its pricing, actually isn't super expensive at $132. Believe me, guys, when it comes to metal bracelets, they can get much more expensive. I mean, you can get leather straps that cost way more than that, right? And they're not even made out of steel. They don't even have, buckles on them. Typically, it's just a pin buckle, right? They're not going to have any type of clasp. But here, friction fit. Again, it flows nicely. It does have, of course, these channels here, which are going to be for strength. So it's not just flat and they fit together well. Everything's machined well in terms of the execution. Not too sharp. I mean, you could call it sharp just because it's thin, but it's not sharp as in like feeling unfinished. Like everything feels quite nice. Nicely signed, of course, with the JB, which is, historically correct there. JB Forstner and the branding. But if you can get past this part, I mean, which is only really while it's off your wrist while you're looking at it, because when it's on your wrist, which let's do that, it's fantastic. So it's one of those things that, maybe it doesn't present well. At the same time, I mean, it flows. I would still love for there to be an option. They do have those options. Let me just give this a quick little wipe here off camera to just get some of the smudges off of these beautifully polished surfaces. Check that out, guys. Yes. I would love for them to offer, one of their more contemporary clasps that are upgraded, that are milled and push button. But at the same time, I know that would make this watch a lot thicker in terms of the execution of this clasp, especially since this bracelet doesn't taper. Now, if it tapered down to 16 millimeters, it'd be easier to add an 18 millimeter clasp. Now, because to say taper down to 16 millimeters, right? I don't know if that's what I said. I think that's what I said. But yeah, it'd be easier to put an 18 millimeter clasp. Now, if it's 18 all the way through, typically your clasp is going to be around 20 millimeters. And I think a 20 millimeter thick clasp would just, I don't know, it just maybe wouldn't flow as well. So I'm a little bit torn. So Forstner, let me know if you're watching this in the comments, what your thoughts are, if you guys do plan to maybe offer that. I know you have plenty of other offerings that sell very, very well that don't have the milled folding section in the clasp. So again, I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think ultimately, if you like this aesthetic, you're going to like the build quality as well. I mean, it's just part of this signature type of design ethos. And I just dig it, guys. It just plays beautifully. It's not too loud. It's just, it gives you a lot of visual interest, and at a glance, hey, that's a that's a nice looking bracelet. But then you look a little bit closer and you just see those details. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, it's going to make the watch look a little bit larger than it actually is. There's going to be some perspective distortion in terms of the way it's going to be warped. But you know, this isn't a watch review, so I'm not too worried about that, but I will keep my wrist a little bit lower here so you guys can also kind of get a full look how this may lay on your own wrist. I do have a 7.5-inch wrist, which is slightly larger than average, but I will say, you know, it is a taller wrist, so it's not flat, wide, and accommodating, and this fits me really, really well. So again, you're going to have different options available. You can get 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 millimeters. And again, that's just at the end link because the bracelet itself and the links are going to be 18 millimeters all the way through, but it is nice to be able to have some of those other options. And I think this, again, I mean, I could see this pairing beautifully on really any type of dress watch, you know, kind of classic mid-century-esque type of dress watch. I think you're going to really, really enjoy that. I think it goes beautifully with this nice Art Deco aesthetic with this dial. My goodness. So it does come with spring bars. It comes with a screwdriver for the adjustments for the links, which is great. And honestly, I had good experience here. All the screws were easy, but not too easy to unscrew and everything like that. So I didn't have anything jam up on me, which happens from time to time. Not just Forstner, but really anybody that uses screw pins. Sometimes you can get unlucky. And in this case, everything was fantastic. So good on Forstner in terms of keeping their QC nice and tight. Now, for those of you, I mean, yeah, this is a bracelet showcase, but you know what? I can't just talk about a couple of links the whole time. So quickly, if you aren't aware, this is a Kurono Tokyo watch, which is by Hajime Isaoka. And this is part of their Grand Series line. The Reiwa was originally introduced in 2019 and translates to beautiful harmony, and is reflected in the Kurono design with its complex two-part dial, right? Which is really, really cool. This actually retailed for $17.90 plus about $55 shipping, for a total of $18.45 if you were lucky enough to secure one. Of course, they all sold out. There was an open pre-order that had a small window, and everybody who ordered them was able to receive them, and anybody who didn't order them, unfortunately, won't be getting one. But the good news is, in terms of the aftermarket for these, they are quite collectible. A lot of people, who collect watches will sell watches as well. So there's a lot of people who, of course, just want to check something out and then maybe move on from it. So you can typically find these on used market. Unfortunately for you, and fortunately, is you can find them on the used market. Unfortunately, though, they typically have quite a decent markup. They pretty much have been known to just double in value, if not more, especially near of when they're still shipping and everything. And I don't even think they fulfilled all those original orders. I was one of the lucky few who got mine pretty early on. So big shout out to Kurono Tokyo. Of course, huge shout out to Forstner. Huge fan, guys. You guys know typically how it is when you're collecting. You find stuff you like, you find brands you trust, and you kind of return back to them. And in this case, when I saw this release with this bracelet, I was like, oh man, that would pair beautifully. So again, they didn't reach out to me. I reached out to them, but they did supply this bracelet, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I'm appreciative of you guys for hanging out with me while I check this out. If you have one of these Reiwas, or really any Kurono Tokyo, because they share, I mean, for the most part, most of their models have a very similar case, if not the same case, and then just very similar dial aesthetics. I think this would go really awesome. Obviously, I think it works here for this particular model, but I think it also would work for other models. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.